I received a book about meditation for Christmas, and when it came to making my New Year goals for 2024, I wanted to make how long I was able to meditate for and my skill level and ability at which I was meditating at. Part of my goals at 3, 6, 9 month and a whole year intervals into 2024. Now, this book was absolutely massive. It's got around 500 pages in it. It's surprisingly modern considering it has quite a lot of wisdom in it. And this book absolutely humbled my own meditation ability and helped me realize how much more there was to meditation and how complex, despite being quite a simplistic act, how far you can actually progress and how much more it is than just sitting down in a chair for 10 minutes and closing your eyes, setting a timer and trying to focus on your breath. Because what I realized is that when you start meditating, most people aren't able to focus on the breath because the mind is such an unruly place. And me, myself, I was also like this. When I started meditating, the mind is so chaotic and unruly that it's almost impossible to focus on the breath for more than a minute to 2 minutes. But as you meditate more, you're able to focus on a certain meditation object, which for most people when they start is breathing. You're able to focus on that for a lot longer than you were when you first started. For instance, for me, the other day, I was able to meditate focusing completely on my breathing without distractions, forgetting or mind wandering for around approximately, I don't know the exact time, but I'm gonna guess it was around 20 minutes. And some days it's a lot shorter than that. Some days I can only go 10 minutes and then I'll start to have distractions and forget like the counting of the breath and the breath itself. I will start having mind wanderings and thoughts and get a bit agitated, a bit discomforting and that sort of stuff. But your ability in meditation can fluctuate a lot, and that's especially common when you're at the sort of first stages of meditation. And the first stage in this book, which goes through 10 stages of meditating to literally get from establishing a practice and becoming consistent with meditation to achieving awakening and inner peace and some sort of thing which nor you and I can probably fathom. And it's so much more complex than just sitting down, closing your eyes and focusing on your breath, because I really want to sort of drill that into you. I was only meditating for 10 to 15 minutes before I received this book, but as I've received this book, which has so many easy to implement actionable steps, things that you wouldn't come about on your own, but they'd be things that an expert, someone who has reached the 10th, 9th, 8th stage would help out someone at the first or second stages, that seems so simple, so easy to implement, but only someone at this stage who's experienced the hardship in a way to get to the top, only someone who's up there would know how to sort of find the little cheats and shortcuts to actually be able to tame the mind in a weird sort of way, because the mind is such a chaotic and unruly thing. It's so difficult to focus on the breath, especially if you've only just started meditating. Some people watching this video may be meditating for 6 months, year, 2 years, however long you've been meditating, but I feel like I'm going to progress so much quicker than what I was doing. I was only meditating for 10-15 minutes a day, and personally I believe you're not going to get too far with that up this sort of specific plane of meditation. And I only thought meditation had good benefits such as being more focused and obtaining and achieving better mental health, but there is so much more to meditation than that, and now I've realized that, and I'm meditating for 30 to 35 minutes a day. I'm going to try to increase it at 5-minute per month increments, and by the end of the year I'll be meditating for hopefully an hour, hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes each day, which is an absolutely insane achievement when you're considering I've only been meditating for 10 to 15 minutes for most days throughout my life. I do seriously think that meditation is just the #1 way to fix your mind. If I could put it in a no bullshit sense, meditation, if you go from establishing a practice, becoming consistent in meditating for 10 to 15 minutes a day, and you increase it in 5-minute increments. I decided to skip some 5-minute increments, and I think I've handled that perfectly fine because I felt like I was just holding myself back with how long I was able to meditate, just through pure boredom, not really realizing the benefits of meditation, and just from time constraints and stuff like that. But I've set aside time every day to meditate now, and I really feel like I will experience the benefits of that in years to come, just from being so much more mindful, so much more focused, and the sort of attention and peripheral awareness that you'll have just going about your daily life. You will be able to notice things that you before weren't able to notice without meditating. It's just the #1 way to fix your mind, and when you first start, it will be difficult. You won't be able to focus on your breath for more than a minute to 2 minutes, but then when you consistently do this for even a year, you'll be able to, without issue, focus on your breath for at least 30 minutes. And for me, 20 minutes, as I said before, being able to focus on the breath, no problem. That is on a good day. Some days it's only 10. Some days if I'm like, I feel quite tired. For instance, around the time of Christmas and New Year's and that sort of stuff, there's a few late nights when you're seeing family, which means when you wake up the next morning, I like to wake up at a pretty similar time each day. So when I wake up the next morning, I'm going to feel a little bit more tired, and that's going to mean that my mind is just more likely to wander off and think about random things and forget the meditation object, the breath, the breathing. I really do stress to you that you do try to implement meditation into your life from this day forward, because it's so beneficial to you. You'll become so much more focused, so much more mindful, and everything will just seem to fall into place with how your mind works in a weird sort of way. And I know there's so many things like time constraints, your ability level, how much you're actually experiencing the benefits in the sort of really short term. I'm talking like a week. You're going to need at least a month to realize that I'm a lot more focused, a lot more stable with my attention than I was before, because the first time I ever meditated, I could barely keep my eyes closed and I could not focus on my breathing, and basically the whole time was just spent mind wandering and thinking. But then you start to see noticeable progress sort of a month to 3 weeks, 2 weeks into your sort of meditation journey. I really stress that you start to implement a consistent practice from today. And a few tips to help you establish a practice is to find a comfortable posture. I do it on a chair, which is not the most comforting position, but I do recommend sitting down, either cross-legged on the floor or on a chair, rather than lying down. Lying down, because you're in a position where you feel more tired. Every time I've done meditation lying down, I've had a pretty, not a bad session, but a session where I'm not more stable and focused as I normally am when I'm sitting down. And I do that just because I feel tired, and it means I'm more likely to mind wander and all that sort of stuff, forget the breath and get distracted by noises and senses and stuff like that. So finding a posture where you feel comfortable and where you feel you'll be able to achieve your potential is absolutely paramount. You've also got things like procrastination, resistance and reluctance of your own ability, and self-doubt and all that sort of stuff. Now when it comes to things like doubt and anger and aversion to your own ability at meditation, it gets a bit more deeper sort of into the sort of spiritual side of things, and I'm sort of only just getting into that level, so I'm probably not the most inclined. But when it comes to procrastination, I think I've overcome that quite well. I meditate not at a set period of time each day, but what I'll do is, if I know that I'm going to be at family this evening, and normally I meditate in the evening, on a default day, I'd say my normal meditation time, I try to start meditating at around 8:30 to 8:25. That sort of time. There'll be days if I'm like doing football training where I'm going to be there during that time, so I'll decide to meditate before football training just to get it over and done with, instead of procrastinating or sort of getting out of it, making excuses by saying, oh, because I'm at training I won't be able to meditate at the set time. If you're not able to meditate at the set time, then that's fine, but it just means that you're going to have to find another time. But on your sort of default day, do set a time, whether it's 8:30, whether it's sort of 10 o'clock in the evening, maybe even if it's in the morning, just immediately after you wake up. If you feel refreshed, you go outside for a bit, have a cold shower, pour some cold water in your head or whatever, and then you sit down on a chair or on the floor and meditate for 30 minutes or whatever. That is perfectly fine. But if you set a set time, or at least somewhere in your routine where you're able to get meditation done and completed and reap the benefits, that is perfect. And try to, at least for the first 2 weeks of meditation, try to make it the priority over things such as cleaning and the common procrastination tasks, the things where you sort of say to yourself, oh, I have to get this done, and that's going to mean that I'm not able to meditate and stuff like that. If you make meditation the priority, if you make time for it, then by the sort of end of the 2 weeks, if there is definitely something like, oh, I really do have to clean my house now, or I've got this thing going on in the evening, you'll want to meditate, and so you'll find time elsewhere in your day to meditate, and that is just a perfect thing. And that's how this habit will form. I think I read in a book somewhere that it takes around 62 days for a habit to form, which is around 3 months. So for the first sort of 3-month period of starting to meditate, if you make it a consistent habit, you make it a priority in your sort of evenings or in your mornings, in those sort of spots of your routine, if you make it a priority, you will eventually make it a habit, and then that way you can start to focus on doing things like cleaning instead of meditation. But because you'll enjoy meditation so much, you would have reaped the benefits of it, and you would understand how complex and how fun in a weird sort of way it is. You will find time to do it elsewhere in your day. Now, a few simple tips that I can give you when it comes to focusing on the breath and following breathing is to try and follow the breath. Notice the exact moment and the exact sensations of when you first breathe in and then you breathe out, when the breath sort of stops and starts, Sometimes I like to count my breaths. I count to 10. I don't really go over 10. If I feel like I'm losing attention and focus, just like not completely falling off the cliff, but my breath's sensations are drastically getting like less vivid over time, I'll then bring it back to counting to try to make it a bit more vivid. And then sometimes it'll be a bit dull, and the same sort of thing happens again. It won't just be a complete drop of a cliff to thinking about some random thing. It'll sort of slowly like do that until eventually you're at the same point you would have been there if it had fallen off a cliff. But other than doing simple things such as following the breath, connecting with the breath, noticing different sensations, and that will make you more mindful and more focused, I recommend to have a positive attitude and a positive mindset. That's probably one of the most important things to progress through the 10 stages that I read about in this book. Because if you do not have a positive mindset, if every single time you forget your breath and you mind wander, and when you come back to reality and you sort of have that moment where you're like, oh, I was thinking about something that wasn't the meditation object, if you sort of beat yourself up about that, if you sort of beat up your attention and like get mad at yourself in a weird sort of way, that's not going to help your introspective awareness to sort of bring you back to reality, and it's sort of going to mean that you're going to be mind wandering for longer periods. It's counterproductive in a way. If you become thankful for when you sort of wake up from mind wandering, the positive reinforcement that you give to your own brain will mean that those mind wandering periods become shorter and eventually non-existent, and that is the sort of way that you progress through these stages. Consistency and just having a stable practice, doing it at a similar time every single day, unless of unavoidable circumstances. Although if you're enjoying it, you're most likely going to try find another time to meditate in the first place. And having a positive attitude are the two most important things when it comes to meditation. It's an incredibly simple thing, but it takes time to reap the benefits, and that is the whole process of delayed gratification that so many people speak about on self-improvement. But with that, I hope you found this video useful, and I recommend subscribing because I love this community of young tribal people who are willing to improve themselves so much more than they already have. And good luck.